Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second day of the Resilience Development Initiatives and British Geological Survey workshop on understanding geological hazard to support disaster risk assessment in Indonesia. Today's session is on volcanic and tsunami hazard. This workshop marks the kickoff of a collaboration between RDI and BGS and hopefully can bridge further research and widen partnerships and connection between Indonesia and the UK agencies as well as wider agencies and partners. My name is Nuraini Rahma Hanifa and I will be your moderator for today from the National Research and Innovation Agency. I'm very excited to be with 5 prominent speakers today. Ibu Andiani, the head of Volcanology and Geological Mitigation Center from Geological Agency, Dr. Devi Kamil Shahbana, Dr. Samantha Engwell, Dr. Abdul Muhari, and Professor Dr. David Tapin. Before we go further with our agenda, please allow me to explain our housekeeping rules for the workshop today. First, please enter into the Zoom room with your full name, and please add your affiliation beside your name. We will request the participants to fill the attendance list that is available in the chat box and also in the YouTube live chat. During the workshop, participants are not allowed to turn on the microphone and video during the presentation, but we do encourage you to actively participate during our session. We will use various digital platforms such as Mentimeter and also Padlet. And we recommend you, if you have any questions, to use Padlet via the link in the chat room below, which is available also in the YouTube live chat. The selected questions will be discussed in a question and answer session and discussion after the presentation. After the first panel discussion and presentation, we will have the FGD session where the Zoom host will divide the participants into 3 breakout rooms. Each room will have a facilitator joining the designated breakout room to guide the discussion, and there will be also note taker for each room to recap and write the participants' questions or answer on the Padlet. Please note that this workshop is also being recorded and we are saving all presentations. You will be sent a link afterwards after the session finish. If you miss something or we talk too fast, you will be able to watch it again later on the RDI YouTube account. Here also attends Fatia and Nawang as a guide for this event. You can find them in the chat box. If you have any inquiry, you can chat personally to them. The certificate will be provided for participants who fill out the attendance form. Next, let me explain a little bit about the background of this workshop. As we might understand, the Indonesia archipelago is located in the intersection of 3 active tectonic plates. And in 2020 alone, there was 2,052 among which 7 are related to volcanic activity based on the recent report from BNPB. Volcanic activity in Indonesia covers a very wide range of behavior, from dome growth to explosive eruption, with this activity associated with a number of hazards from ash falls to pyroclastic falls and lahars to landslide and also tsunami. We have learned about the Krakatau tsunami and also the recent Tonga eruption that also triggered the tsunami. On the last 4 December 2021, the rain triggered lahars followed by an explosion and pyroclastic density happened in Semeru and create a complexity in the disaster. In the disaster and also in handling the response. On the other hand, with the high intensity of volcanic and tectonic activities, this condition also makes Indonesia prone to experiencing tsunami, such as the Krakatau and the latest Tonga that I've already mentioned. The large amount of water displacement was caused by volcanic materials which fell into the sea. We have also experienced a very huge Krakatau eruption followed by tsunami in 1883, which was also felt globally. With that sense, there is an urgent need to improve our basic understanding of geological hazard and the ability to deal with them. And this need to be accentuated by the increasing number of hazard events in Indonesia. We have an increased studies and research that also demonstrated the potential of deep learning to analyze geological hazard data effectively. And we also see the multiple tasks for various types of geological hazard, such as landslide, susceptibility assessment, seismic data interpolation, and denoising, along with earthquake detection and also localization. Indonesia is also starting to enter the era of Industrial Revolution 4.0, where most of our activities need to be supported by technology, including for mitigation. We have a growing advanced technology for early detection system and early warning system that is needed to anticipate disasters ranging from floods, landslides, tsunamis, and volcano. However, we can also see the need to improve our information, our early warning system, and also how to reach the population and how to make the community at risk understand about the early warning system. We also learned that there is cascading effects of disaster that also cause more complexity, and more research is needed, and of course more collaboration is also needed. BGS has a long history to study the geological in Indonesia, and this workshop will provide an opportunity to learn, discuss, and offer a forum to explore research topics on understanding, measuring, mitigation, and modeling of multi-geological hazard in Indonesia. We will discuss later on what is the opportunities given, what are the research gap, what are the challenges. We will focus on elaborating and discussing this geological hazard, the assessment methods, as well as the communication, the psychology, implementation, policies, and how to bridge the risk-informed spatial planning and policies once we have the knowledge. The first day has focused on earthquake and landslide. We have a very rich discussion yesterday, and today we will discuss on volcanic and tsunami hazard. Beside aiming to stimulate the key actors and public understanding awareness of various hazards, this workshop will also present some case studies to encourage the implementation and continuity of previous research and explore new approaches on addressing catastrophic disaster and potential impactful hazards that are still not well assessed. We hope that this workshop series will support government and agencies at national and local level, communities, experts from organizations, and all relevant stakeholders to ensure each entity can contribute to upstream discussion on emerging issues relating to geological hazard and mitigation to strengthen Indonesia resiliency in the future. For that, we have today 5 distinguished speakers. The first one is Ibu Andiani, Head of Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation of Indonesia. The second is Dr. Devi Kamil Shahbana from the Center of Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation Indonesia. Dr. Samantha Engwell from the British Geological Survey. Dr. Abdul Muhari from the National Agency for Disaster Management, the Head of Data and Information, and Professor Dr. David Tapin from the British Geological Survey. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to our first keynote speaker, Ibu Dr. Andiani. Ibu Andiani is the recent head Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation since 2021. Previously, she was the head of the Center for Groundwater and Environmental Geology of Geological Agency. She pursued her Master Engineering in Urban and Regional Planning of ITB, and previously obtained her bachelor degree in geology of UPNV Yogyakarta. She has many publications in the geological expertise, and today we will hear your presentation and keynote speak on the overview of the volcanic and tsunami hazard management and monitoring in Indonesia. To Ibu Andiani, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Rahma. May I share my screen, my slide? Good afternoon, distinguished guests and all of the participants of the the workshop this afternoon. The theme of my talk today is overview of volcanic and tsunami hazard management and monitoring in Indonesia. Indonesia is a unique country and it consists of at least 70,000 islands and located between two continental plates, Australian and Eurasian plates, and two oceanic plates, Pacific and Philippine Sea plate. As a result, we have 227 active volcanoes and more than 280 active faults and several geological hazards such as earthquakes, tsunami, and landslide. Nevertheless, we gain many advantages from it, for example, fertile soil, sediment basin, geothermal manifestation, groundwater basin, and high potential of energy resources. Let's take a look into volcano in Indonesia. Indonesia has 127 volcanoes and 77 of it are considered as type A or have recorded eruption historically since 1600. And there are 29 volcanoes are considered as type B or with eruptive historical recorded before 1600. And 21 volcanoes as type C with Solfatara and Fumarola, but no eruptive historical record. Tsunami in Indonesia could be triggered not only by earthquake, but also by volcanic eruption and landslide with more than 300,000 casualties. Most of coastal areas in Indonesia are prone to tsunami, especially those facing an adjacent to tsunami source. Tsunamis can also be triggered by landslide, volcanic eruption, meteorite falls, or other causes. Historical records state that 85% of tsunami events in Indonesia are triggered by tectonic earthquake. However, it should be noted that tsunami caused by volcanic activity have been responsible for considerable loss of life in the past, including the 1883 Krakatau eruption and partial collapse of Anak Krakatau in 2018. This is the business process of Center of Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation. The business process of CVGHA are included collecting and analysis of its geological hazards. Also, we provide hazard map. We also monitoring of particular hazard, especially volcano activity and also landslide. We are responsible for connect volcano early warning system, and we apply alert level, which are four alert level, which are level 1 is normal, level 2 is waspada, level 3 is siaga, and level 4 is awas. For each other level, we will issue a technical recommendation as a guideline for decision maker to conduct mitigation effort. We also monitor volcanoes that potentially trigger tsunami, and part of our task is tsunami mitigation activity, which cover mapping of tsunami deposit and hazard, dissemination of tsunami, quick response or rapid assessment post-tsunami event, and also giving technical recommendation of tsunami mitigation. Any tsunami risk reduction program must be based on a solid fundamental studies. The program consists of many specific stages and require collaboration and effective communication between stakeholders. And one of the basic efforts of mitigation or hazard risk reduction is spatial planning based on geological disaster management, and for that, geological data and hazard maps are needed. In Indonesia, according to the Presidential Regulation and Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources Regulation, the authority and responsibility in the preparation of the volcano earthquake, tsunami, and landslide hazard map carried out by the Geology Agency of Indonesia. Our hazard map also used as a guideline in mitigating geological hazard. As the conclusion, CVGHM continue to improve the quantity and quality of geological hazard monitoring, survey, and mapping in Indonesia to support geological disaster mitigation in Indonesia. Disaster mitigation is a joint work of all parties, including government, academic, private sector, media, and society. The collaboration and synergy between the parties will determine the success of mitigating future geological disasters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Andiani, for providing the overview of volcano and tsunami as a basis for our discussion today. We have hundreds of volcano and also so many tsunamis which are unique, can be triggered by earthquake 85% and also by volcano and landslide. And we have also several types of tsunami that we need to consider as well as for the volcano. Bu Andiani will need to leave the session. So prior you leaving, maybe we will kindly request to have a photo session together with all the participants. To all the participants, we kindly request you to open your camera to take a group photo together. And maybe Bu Andiani, if we are allowed to also receive your presentation, we will be also very grateful.
Okay, thank you, Bu Rahma. Thank you all the participants.
We would like also to welcome the head of data and information of National.
Bu Rahma, you're on mute, I guess.
Sorry. Okay, we would like to welcome also Dr. Abdul Mohari, the head of data and information, to our session.
Ya, Pak Aam.
Okay.
Ya, Pak Saud, Bu Rahmat.
Ya, selamat bergabung. Ya.
Okay, let's take a group photo. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Do we have any special gesture, Pak Saud?
Maybe Fatia knows.
No, we didn't have any special gesture, Bu Rahma.
Okay, so I hope this is enough and the picture was well taken. We thank you again one more to Ibu Andiani, the head of Volcanology and Geological Disaster Mitigation Research Center of Geological Agency. To Ibu Andiani, thank you again once more. So next we will move to our second speaker. This is my good friend, my senior, my sensei, Dr. Devi Kamil Shahbana. Dr. Devi worked for the Volcano and Geological Hazard Mitigation of Indonesia. He is a volcanologist expert, graduated from Bachelor of Physics of Institute Technology Bandung, and pursue his PhD in Université Libre de Bruxelles in Belgium, and continue postdoctoral research in Potsdam, Germany. He started working in the Center for Volcanology since 2014, yeah, 2006, 2006 until now. And he has published many publications, and he has been also working closely with BNPB and other stakeholders so that the geological hazard is well informed to the stakeholders. To Pak Devi Kamil Shahbana, the time is yours to your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Rahma. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those of you who are in Europe. Share my screen. Okay, what's that? Okay, so Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm Devi Kamil Syahbana. I'm from the Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation of the Geological Agency of Indonesia. Today, I will present to you an overview of the development of volcano monitoring system in Indonesia within the next 10 minutes. I hope I can use it wisely. For your information, volcano monitoring activity has been carried out in Indonesia for more than 100 years ago. And even before Indonesia was formed as a nation. So nowadays, volcano monitoring also not only represents a technical activity, but has also become an integrated part of the social and economic activities of the people living around the volcano. And first of all, let me show you the background of the condition of volcanic activities in Indonesia. As you've seen on the screen, Indonesia has 127 active volcanoes. 79 of them erupted in the last 100 years or in the Holocene era. And 42 volcanoes caused fatalities within their eruption. 7 to 12 volcanoes erupted every year, and at least 2 volcanoes erupted every day. So today there are 2 volcanoes erupted in Indonesia. And volcanic hazards can vary, including lava bombs or flows, pyroclastic flows, falls, and volcanic ash, debris avalanche, and even it can trigger a tsunami. So I have compiled all the possibility or the percentage of hazard types that happened in Indonesia because of the volcanic activities. As you've seen that most hazard that often cause fatalities are lahar and pyroclastic flow. But the number or the amount of deaths caused by the volcanic activities was are not caused by the direct impact of the eruptions. It's more than 60%. It is caused by indirect activity, like the famine and disease that was following the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora, and also the tsunami, which is caused by the 1883 eruption of Anak Krakatau and others. So the direct impact, like lahar and pyroclastic flow, they are lower than this. So in short, I can say that the most frequent volcanic hazards are those that most often cause fatalities, but the ones that cause the most fatalities are secondary hazards that occur the least. So this is the development of volcanology in Indonesia. See that between the year 1500 to 1800, these are the periods of documentation and non-scientific reports, and then it moves to the year 1800 and 1900. It was the beginning of the scientific reports era, and then the institution development started in 1920, which is marked the monitoring activities of volcanoes in Indonesia done systematically. And here in this slide, I will talk about the volcano monitoring system in Indonesia. It's developed through 4 reinforcements. So this includes, first is the making regulations, and the second one is developing monitoring methods and networks, and number 3 is strengthening the human resources, and number 4, of course, establishing cooperation with other institutions. And but some people, not only in Indonesia, maybe also abroad, think that simply improving volcano monitoring technology and installing like sophisticated equipments will solve the problem, but it doesn't. The previously mentioned components I said are interrelated, and therefore efforts to develop a reliable volcano monitoring system cannot solely focus on one component. And so I will talk about the regulation. So the regulation development in Indonesia. So in this slide, I show you the evolution of the development of volcano monitoring regulation over time, which is manifested in the form of institutional development with relevant tasks and functions. So you know that the advocacy for the development of volcano monitoring system in Indonesia began in the Dutch Indies era. It wasn't in Indonesian era yet. So this is this already done in the early 1920s. So, and after Indonesia declared its independence day in 1944, the monitoring of volcanoes automatically changed hands to the Indonesian government. And however, the volcanic monitoring activities were in hiatus, so due to the ongoing war at that time. So, and since the 1950s, monitoring of volcanoes around Indonesia has been carried out, and by the Indonesian government in the coordination with the Volcano Watch Service at the time, the name of the institution, under the Ministry of Mines and Energy. So, and this is the process. So 1919 eruption of Glut, and then it becomes the Vulcan Bukit. Then it moved also to Japan during the 1942, and then during the 1945 to now it's with Indonesian government. And here is the monitoring in the technological development areas. Volcano monitoring, has grown significantly around the world, from only performing direct visual monitoring in the field periodically to remotely done real-time instrumental monitoring of volcano done remotely. So monitoring of volcanoes in Indonesia is done remotely. It's mainly because volcanoes in Indonesia are located on scattered islands, and some of them are not easy to access. This slide show the state-of-the-art of volcano monitoring schema in Indonesia. There are currently 74 volcano observatories monitoring 69 active volcanoes in Indonesia. So the standard monitoring methods include visual, seismic, and deformation monitoring, and some volcanoes are also equipped with the geochemical sensors. In total, we manage about 300 or more, I think more than 300 monitoring stations all over Indonesia. And then equipment is installed around the volcano. Then we send it by radio communication to the observatory, and then from the observatory we send it by VISAT to Bandung as our headquarters, and it was managed into the database and information system by then. So the data is analyzed continuously by volcanologists in Bandung to become an alert and recommendations, and then it will be published on our Magma web application. You can access it, magma.sdem.go.id. So, and also by using the Android application, it is named as Magma Indonesia as well, which are accessible for the public for free. So, what information inside? You have like the streams of information over time. Even you can filter all the activities by date, and you can choose any volcanoes, and then you can have the information about that volcano from time to time. So it shows you that this volcano is monitored continuously every day. And the periods of the reporting can be like one every day or 4 times every day. It depends on the activity of the volcano. So some volcanoes, some observatories made a report of every 6 hours. And then what information inside it? You can have the alert level, information of the alert level and the hazard maps, and also the monitoring data. And also for those, for our partners in the aviation sectors, we also send VONA to give a warning related to volcanic ash. So, and the second part from the fourth part, like we need like human resources, because we need to do 24 hours monitoring. So we have like 2 to 4 volcano observers per observatory. They work 24 hours in shift. And in total, we have like about more than 200 volcano observers around Indonesia. They are, beside them, we have also other 40 staff in Bandung in the headquarters. It's include the geophysicists, geochemists, geodesists, geographer, technicians, and geologists as well. Sorry, I forgot to write it down. And so it's certainly one of important key or important element in volcano system in Indonesia. And the last part is the cooperation. So as I told you before, that cooperation is very important. Inter-organizational cooperation is important, I think, because it allows us to work together in achieving a common goal or derive mutual benefits, which can be faster and better. So in the last few decades, cooperation in the field of volcanology in Indonesia has continued to grow. So these are some examples of the partners that we have worked together. Some of them still work together with us. So cooperations have involved several universities in Indonesia, like the Bandung Institute of Technology, where Pak Saud is working now, and also with other university like the Brawijaya University, Gajah Mada University, and others. And also cooperations with other countries have also been done, like with the United States of America and also Japan, France, Singapore, Belgium, Germany, and others have been carried out in the past years, and some of them are still ongoing.
5 more minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is 1 minute, we'll be finished. And these cooperations are generally focused on developing volcano monitoring technology and strengthening the technical capacity of volcanologists from collaborating institutions. So in this slide, I show you the volcano monitoring networks in Bali, which is one example of the collaboration between CVGHM or our institute with other institutions. This is with the United States. And also, in addition, we have also cooperation in the development of the capacity of our staff. So cooperation can be carried out in the forms of PhD projects, master projects, or technical courses, like the example of this Center for the Study of Active Volcanoes in Hawaii, which is done once every year. So, and as a closing remarks, yeah, I would like to re-emphasize that the volcano monitoring system in Indonesia is an integration of 4 important components, including regulation, network equipment, human resources, and cooperation. So the end product of a volcano monitoring system in Indonesia is a hazard warning, which is manifested in the form of a volcano alert level and hazard zone recommendations. And this one that I showed in the image on the left. So volcanic hazard warnings are not the only thing to strive for. As we all know, an early warning system is built by 4 components. The first is risk knowledge, and then the second is hazard monitoring and warning. The third is communication and information dissemination, and the fourth is response capability. We, the CVGHM, work mainly on this second and the third part of this system. Seeing a broad spectrum of work like this, we need to realize that volcanoes are not only an exclusive area for volcanologists or for certain institution, but are a shared domain that needs to be worked on together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Devi, for your impressive presentation, and also to tell the history from the 15th century in the last 5 decades, 5 century of the progress of volcano monitoring. And also it's not only monitoring, but also include the regulation, human and international cooperation to leverage all of this. I also noticed that there is a continuous improvement, especially after an eruption event happened. So thank you again very much, Dr. Devi. And before moving to Dr. Samantha, we would like to have a short ice-breaking using Mentimeter. If the committee can share the Mentimeter. So there will be a menti.com link that will be shared in the chat room. So the link for the Menti session is already shared in the chat room. You can click the menti.com using your desktop, your laptop, or your cell phone. And then there will be a first question on how do you get the information about geological hazard? Through TV, radio, newspaper, social media, formal government release, or word of mouth. Please also notice that PVMBG has also a active social media. If you haven't followed, you can follow, and they also have icon from the volcano. Okay, thank you. We have 16 people answering. Most answer that the information is mostly on social media, followed by TV, radio, and newspaper, and then formal government release. So this is interesting. Maybe I would like to ask, which social media are you following? Maybe you can also add in the chat room, which social media are you following? So maybe we will wait until 30% or 1 more minute or 30 seconds if you can. Yeah, Padiki, which Instagram, Padiki? Whose account of Instagram?
PVMBG.
FMBG ya.
And,
Yeah.
and also the
Same with
application,
me.
Magma Indonesia, I think is very helpful.
Yes, yes, it's a must have to. It's a must-have application, Magma Indonesia. I also see here info BMKG and also the BNPB ya. I also have all of this.
Inaris.
Inaris ya. Inaris, Magma Apps, info BMKG, FB, IG, it's very interesting. Also WhatsApp group ya, consider as social media as well. Okay, let's move to the next question. How do you mitigate the volcano and tsunami hazard around you? So you can fill in here three answer. How do you mitigate the volcano and tsunami hazard around you? You can put the keyword, three keyword that best reflect on your effort to mitigate the volcano and tsunami hazard. See the hazard map, tsunami wall, evacuate, hazard map, follow CG PVMBG ya. I'm confused reading in English. Hazard map again, act accordingly, stay calm, listen to the government, socialization in schools, evacuate. Any other answer? Act accordingly, community engagement. Community engagement is very important. Follow the recommendation, monitoring, praying. Yeah, praying is important as well, but also effort. Yeah, evacuate to a safer place, relocation. Interesting for relocation. Maybe we will wait another 30 seconds for this answer. So I see that hazard map is very important here. We have the most answering hazard map. Also knowledge on the past events, yeah, knowledge on the past events. Find a safe hill, mitigation map, self-awareness, run, and then, yeah, I think we are going to stop here. And in your opinion, who is responsible for geological hazard mitigation? You can also put here three question. PVMBG. So if you are going to answer PVMBG, please put the same abbreviation ya, PVMBG. PVMBG, BMKG, community with partners, geological agency, government, everyone, local community, us, BMKG, sudah ya, pentahelix, ya, PVMBG, again, government, everyone. So everyone now start to gain most. Okay, and BNPB come out, myself. Yeah. So we are responsible for ourselves. Yeah, I think we can stop here. Thank you very much for your participation to the Mentimeter. This can also be part of the trigger during our FGD later on. Before that, we will allow Dr. Samantha Engwell from British Geological Survey, a senior volcanologist. She graduated from BSc Honor Geological First Class from University of Edinburgh, Department of Earth Sciences, and continue her master degree in the Research Natural Hazard University of Bristol, School of Earth Sciences, and then pursue PhD in geology in the same university. She has been a research assistant in the University of Edinburgh and working in the British Geological Survey as a volcanologist since 2015 and senior volcanologist since 2018. Dr. Engwell presentation topic is understanding and communicating volcanic hazard. To Dr. Samantha Engwell, you have 10 minutes to present and you may have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It's been a great morning already. I've learned a lot, so thank you. Okay, so my presentation is going to be a little bit different to some of the other presentations that have happened before, in the sense of, instead of focusing on a specific application, I'm kind of going to showcase some of the things that we have been doing in volcanology at BGS over the past few years, so that we can then have discussions about, you know, mutual interest and future potential collaborations. And so the first place to start is, what are the sorts of things that we do? What do we look at BGS? And so we cover everything from event characterization, whether that's from data collection, field assessment of deposits and impacts, using application of GIS, for example, through to understanding the physical process, for example, application of analog experiments and numerical models to understand what the processes that actually occur during an eruption, through to application of more mathematical techniques that allow us to do things like probabilistic hazard assessments of areas. And so that's all looking at the processes and what's happened in terms of the physical process. We're also very much working around communities and communication, whether that's through citizen science or social science, and also involved in event response, and that's through provision of scientific advice to both the UK government and to European civil protection agencies. So just while I'm talking about collaborations, we collaborate across a whole range of different institutions. I've already mentioned government. We also work with a number of different volcano observatories, industry, an example of that would be aviation, and also researchers. So there's a really wide range of collaborators. Because of volcanoes are multi-hazard in their nature, so we have a multi-hazard approach. We look at everything from local to global scale. So aviation is another great example of volcanism and global impact. And all of this work is working towards disaster risk reduction. So next slide, please. Thank you very much. So in terms of, I mentioned that volcanoes are multi-hazard. So we work on quite a large range of different hazards at volcanoes, incorporating everything from the ash and gas plumes, ash dispersal, pyroclastic density currents, lahars and lava flows. And I'm sure that there's things I've missed here as well, but this was just to give you a bit of a flavor of some of the things that we're thinking about and working on. Next slide, please. Okay, and so what does volcanology do? What do we do in volcanology at BGS? So we are using science to address problems that are associated with volcanic environments and hazards, their products and magma system, and using the products, so the magmatic rocks and the volcanic rocks that produce during eruptions, to understand what's happened during eruption, but also the magmatic system beneath the volcano. And we might use lots of different techniques to do that, whether we're looking at deposit scale variations in deposits, through to micron scale analysis of ash to understand how it's being transported through the atmosphere, through application of numerical models to understand volcanic plume formation and how ash gets into the atmosphere, and ultimately what height it reaches in the atmosphere, which is very important for both local to regional hazards and also to aviation. And then also looking at impact. So for example, looking at deposition of ash on roofs and the hazards associated with that. Next slide, please. Thank you. As I mentioned in my first slide, a lot of our work is going towards decision making and policy, and a lot of that is backed up by the production of both databases and tools. And so gathering data and putting that data together in a way that can be used to understand volcanic activity and inform hazard is a key part of lots of our research. And so on this slide, this is a particular example where this is a screenshot of a website that shows a database of eruption source parameters. These are parameters that are required in terms of ash and aviation for informing where ash might go. And we have in this data set that's been developed over many years with many collaborations, possible parameters for every volcano worldwide. And so for lots of volcanoes, we don't have quite enough information to make these data really certain. And so we're really keen to work with experts in different volcanoes to make sure that some of these resources that we have are the best that they can be and are representative of everyone's knowledge. I'll put the links to all of any of the things that I mentioned in this slide in the chats later. Next slide, please. Thank you. We also have a specific interest in volcanic islands. We're responsible for a couple of volcanic islands that have active volcanoes on, and also populations. And as you all know, volcanic islands present their own difficulties in the sense of both understanding the volcanic knowledge and the volcanic knowledge in terms of the historical activity at these volcanoes. Often eruptive deposits are deposited off land. And so it's very difficult to get an understanding of past activity and past frequency of activity. But also there are difficulties in relation to hazard response, for example, if there was an event on these particularly remote volcanic islands. And so these are things that we're considering, especially in regards to these volcanoes, but are applicable to lots of other areas. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then the heart of all of this, and relates to the previous slides as well, is volcanoes and their environments are often data poor, and that's because the deposits and evidence of past eruptions are often remobilized. It takes a lot of time to collect data. Data is often very sparse. And so one of the things that we've been working a lot on is developing approaches for application in data poor environments, and whether that's using a limited amount of data to then try and estimate key characteristics of an eruption. So whether that's the eruption size in terms of the amount of material emitted or the plume height, to impacts, for example. So we've also been developing things that look at, for example, identifying analog volcanoes, which is really important for when you have a volcano where you have very little information and you were trying to identify an alternate volcano that we can use, that has more information that we can use to then inform our understanding of potential activity at that volcano, at the other volcano. And another tool for looking at working in data poor environments is the application of numerical modelling. So numerical modelling does not solve all problems, but it can be used as a tool to help inform our understanding. And this is an example on the slide led by Annie Winston, where she was looking at application of a model and using different source conditions at Rdi volcano to understand and try and interpret what had happened at past eruptions by relating numerical model results to deposit information. And next slide, please. Thank you. And so I mentioned in the start that volcanoes are multi-hazard and we're trying multi-hazard approaches. I won't talk too much about this because I imagine that Dave Tappan will mention about this later. but we have an ongoing project on Krakatau 1883, and this is in collaboration with colleagues both in Indonesia and other institutions globally. But this is focused on the Krakatau 1883 eruption, where we are using information from seismic surveys, from volcanic field surveys, looking at deposits in the field, and applying both numerical modeling of both the volcanic process, in this case, propagation and formation of pyroclastic density currents, with tsunami numerical modeling to try and understand the sources and the reasons for the scale of the tsunamis associated with this eruption. So it's a really good example of a study that's looking at multi-hazards and using multiple different approaches to try and understand those hazards. Next slide, please. And I think this is my last slide. So in all of this, there's lots of work done around the physical dynamics, the application and understanding of past events. But key to all of this is communication and relating this information to environment and society. And so we have, there's a number of different kind of products and outputs. One of the things that I actually forgot to say was a lot of this is the tools that we've been developing and things like that aim to be open source and freely available. So as much as we can, so that they can be applied and used in different locations. But so in terms of citizen science, Christian mentioned MyHaz yesterday, which is an app that was originally produced to collate data for volcanic impact or volcanic information, thank you, and bring that together in an app so that information could be used by decision makers. And that's now been extended to incorporate all different hazards and with an application in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And related to that, there's another app or another tool that brings together all citizen science information from across Europe into one place that again aids information collection, but also decision making and bringing together lots of different information. And a final note on volcanoes and tourism. Volcanoes have become quite a big tourist interest in recent years, but there are specific difficulties related to having such a transient population in typically areas that they don't necessarily know very well. And so there are real challenges around how to communicate information and hazard and risk and ensure that people are aware of their location. So yes, that's me actually finished just there. So thank you very much. A real range of things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samantha. This is very interesting that the task of the geological survey is not only on monitoring the volcano itself, but also on communicating and bringing science to the policymakers, as well as developing the numerical modelings and addressing areas where the data is limited, but also including citizen science, which can also fill in that gaps, and also the recent volcano and tourism. I think it's also starting to happen in Indonesia, like combining disaster with tourism. So thank you again very much, Dr. Samantha. We will move to the Q&A. In the Padlet, we can see several questions that are already asked here. So to Pak Devi, there is a question from Julia Krami from BGS. Thank you for a really interesting talk. You mentioned you have around 200 volcano observers across Indonesia. Are these all scientists, or are people living in communities near volcanoes also volcano observers?
Shall I answer this now?
Yeah, you can answer now, Pak Devi.
Yeah, thank you, Julia, for the question. So yes, we have 200 staffs. They are not really volcanologists, mostly they are technicians, but they are taught to be able to read the seismograms, to classify earthquakes, and to report this to Bandung. But the real volcanologists who are geologists, geophysicists, we have only about 40 people, and 40 people is including also technicians in Bandung. So they are our staff, and mostly they are people from the same region. We try to find people from the community, because it is easier for them to communicate with others if there are some crisis condition.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Devi. Actually, there is another question from Bu Julia to you, but it is answered by Pak Saud. So maybe I will go to the next question from Iqbal on the submarine volcanoes. What sort of monitoring provision do you have for submarine volcanoes? Also, are the satellite-based data included in your dataset? To Pak Devi.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Iqbal, for the question. Yeah, submarine volcanoes are one of volcanoes that we think we need to monitor this. But let me make it clear, because there are we consider that there are two regimes of submarine volcanoes: the shallow regime and the deep sea regime. So because the risk caused by the deep sea submarine volcanoes are low, we are not prioritizing the monitoring of these volcanoes. We identified six volcanoes, I mean underwater volcanoes, submarine volcanoes, and 4 of them are in the deep sea. So, but 2 of them, Hobal and also Vanuatu, but these 2 volcanoes are in a shallow zone. So like Hobal, the depth is maybe less than 100 meters. The depth, I mean, the summit crater is only less than 200 meters from the sea level. And also Vanuatu, which is only like 5 to 10 meters below the sea level. So the risk for the tsunami caused by these volcanoes with depth or with the summit crater shallower than 500 meters, we monitor this volcano. But for the deep sea volcano, more than 500 meters, you can imagine in physics, 500 meters mean 5 megapascal. So it is too large to make. I mean, it is. So even if there are eruptions, I think the effects will be very low, like the one in Mayotte in 2018. Are satellite-based data included in your dataset? Yes, of course, we use it, but yeah, it is not as advanced as maybe more scientists in Europe, but we do use it. For example, in the past eruptions of Semeru, we also use the satellite image to model the pyroclastic flow and others. But the problem with us is that the availability of this satellite image is not in real time mode. So we use it only to monitor like periodic activity of certain volcanoes. But if there are crises, we will ask for the disaster charter to activate the satellite access. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Devi, for your comprehensive answers and also the challenges and what to move forward, including the real-time monitoring, and also to increase, to reach out on the specific cases. To Dr. Samantha, there are 2 questions and 1 comments. So the first question is on the communication, which is really interesting. How do BGS communicates the hazard maps and information to the pentahelix stakeholders, the academia, business, government, communities, and medias for a possible events of eruption, especially for community as a non-scientist society? Any reports for those issues?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. I think relates kind of to a few different things that we do. So in terms of, so I have to be very honest that in terms of volcanic hazard maps and responding to eruptions that on areas or islands that we have a remit for, that hasn't happened in recent times, and we are working with the governments and the local governments on islands, for example, to produce and develop projects and research to produce hazard maps. A lot of this is still work in progress, and to be honest, I feel like these are things that we can learn a lot from you about in terms of communication and development of hazard maps. In terms of providing kind of other advice, that's usually through development of reports, for example, usually in quite short periods of time, where we're trying to pull together information from lots of different resources, and one of the things that we do is on a weekly basis to the UK government, we provide a horizon scanning project where we're presenting information on what's happening over a really large area, and so those communications are open on a weekly basis anyway, and so there's relatively good information sharing. But in terms of the hazard maps, that's still kind of work in progress, and so we're still learning about that too.
Thank you,
Sam.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Samantha. Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think we also face a lot of challenges. Maybe if Pak David wanted to elaborate as well on the practices in Indonesia. On how to communicate the hazard maps. You're still muted.
It's not as straightforward, and there is no straightforward answer. I think, yeah, every region, for example, like in Indonesia, even if I do like a way that is worked for a region, it might not work in other places. So sometimes we need to understand also the culture of the people and how they perceive how they see the information, because there is possibility that they cannot, or they have no ability to read the information correctly, and also some of them they don't want to follow that because of like tradition. So we have so many challenges. So that is why it is difficult for us to have one formulation to answer everything. So yeah, for example, like in Bali, I have an experience to talk with people, and in the beginning it was really hard to make people understand about the risk. But then it's not about it is not about the information that is not understood by them, but the culture there. You need to talk with the religious leader. So at that time we talked with the religious leader, and after that the religious leader talked to the others, and they will follow the religious leader. So I just found out that if the government says A, and then the religious leader says B, the public will follow B.
The leader.
Very interesting.
So that is something that yeah, we need
challenge.
Yeah, that is a challenge, but that's the richness of our culture. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And maybe
Thank
that's
you.
Thank you, Pak Devi.
Thank you, Pak Devi. This is the challenge in Indonesia, and I totally agree with you. Not only for volcano, but also for other disaster occurrence. Yeah, it's how we need to improve also the strategy for communication. I think I will raise one more question, if it's okay, from Pak Saud Sagala. There has been also a comment from Pak Bambang Sidarta to Dr. Samantha on volcanoes and tourism. So since this is the area that we can also explore more in Indonesia, and Dr. Saud is asking if we need to divide the approaches or tools based on the characteristic of the volcano. In addition, if we can also hear from you on any available tools related to citizen science and tourism, and what area we still need to improve on these tools and we could apply in Indonesia context. Please, Samantha.
Yes, I think that's another really good question. And I think this part of this relates to what we've just talked about, in that there might be different tools or different approaches required based on the community or based on the activity, the past activity at volcano, whether past activity is remembered or in generational memory versus whether it's new activity. So I think that there is a real need to understand both the volcanic activity, but also the community's relationship with that volcano, and use that to understand the best approaches. So in terms of citizen science tools and citizen science tools, so I mentioned in the slide that we have worked on the MyHaz tool, and at the moment, so that's really just come out of final development and is being applied in St. Vincent. In fact, I think it's this week that it's being rolled out. So these are quite new tools that are being developed at the moment. And not quite easily applicable to large areas at the moment, but there is potential for the future. It's always good to test these things out before they're rolled out over large areas. But there is potential for the future. And I guess the other thing I would like to say is that I'm definitely not the expert in citizen science, but there are others from BGS on the call who are in the workshop that could maybe speak a bit more to this in the breakout rooms, but also in the chat, and I'd welcome them to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it will be great if it can be also shared in the chat room and also during the breakout room that will happen after this. So again, thank you very much for the Q&A. It is really a rich discussion for us. And then we will start our first focus group discussion, which will be conducted for 30 minutes. There will be 3 rooms, and each facilitator will join the designated breakout rooms to guide the discussions. Participants of the discussion will submit the questions or answer using a Padlet or other mechanism that have been prepared. Please note that the facilitators are expected to present the results on the FGD later on for 1 minute from each group. So I think we will start the assignment of the breakout room. And again, thank you very much, Dr. Devi and Dr. Samantha, for your presentation and also your answer during the discussion. To the committee, please start the breakout room. everyone. Welcome back to the main room. I believe all of you have a good discussion as what happens in breakout room 3. It was a very nice discussion.
Very good discussion.
And I think I also see the others Padlet of breakout room 1 and breakout room 3, which is also very active. So without further ado, I think that everyone has returned here. Yeah. So let's start hearing what happens and the discussion that happening in breakout room 1. I think Dana will present, or some other facilitator, please.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Burama, for the opportunity. And in breakout room 1, we have been discussed a lot of about the opportunities, the challenges, and also the research gap that have been currently facing by the by Indonesia in the volcanic hazard assessment. The first one is the opportunities. The opportunity stuff is about how could we integrate it, new methods that currently developed, and the current human resources to be optimized further. And for the challenges itself, we face a lot of challenges in Indonesia. The first one is about how could we find an appropriate way to communicate the risk, because there's a lot of different culture in Indonesia, and each of them is really rich and really differential with another. And I think the various culture also this is challenges to communicate the risk. And also another challenges is about the how to differentiate the active volcanoes and the dormant one, because the non-active volcanoes can also explode for a lot of years. And also the last one is about the amount of information available in the volcanic hazard. And for the research gap itself, we need to further enhance our knowledge in the submarine volcano, because it did a lot of dig deeper, and also the technology that we need for further the monitoring of the volcanic hazard. And also we need to understand further that the multi-hazard approach for volcanic hazard assessment is needed, because the volcanic hazard is the one who stimulus all of another hazard. So it's not just about the volcanic hazard, but also another hazard that need to be approached with the multi-hazards approach. And the last one is the volcano past data availability, because if we know about the data availability further, we can understand the volcano a little bit deeper. So yeah, I think that's what we can conclude. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dana, and thank you very much for breakout room 1. You can give your reaction to group 1. So we will hear for the next breakout room 2, facilitated by Mbak Fatia. Please, Mbak Fatia.
Thank you, Dr. Rahma. So on our breakout room, we also managed to analyze or to identify certain opportunities that already established in Indonesia about monitoring and volcanic hazard assessment in Indonesia. For example, one, we already have online platform of Magma that it's already open to public, and it's kind of one-stop website for geological hazard information in Indonesia. Another things as we see as an opportunity in Indonesia too, it's also the local wisdom, local understanding of people that live in near the hazardous area. Some of the people that live in the hazardous area, it's already have a better perception of the hazard itself. But how to make it this kind of understanding, how to make it this perception also delivered to people in other area too. And this become our assessment on the challenge that we face in Indonesia about flood of information, because we have 127 active volcanoes in Indonesia, and most of them, maybe 4 of them is exploded daily, show some certain activity in daily, and people might get overwhelmed with that certain information if they just bombarded with so many information from so many WhatsApp group, from social media, and etc. But so how to make it certain information, it's designated to be accessible for certain people too. And And this make us address another challenges too, because some information, despite this kind of flood of information we have in this digital era, some people might not be able to access this information, especially in remote area. So in this part, we then combine this kind of approach by using digital information platform, but also by to strengthening people preparedness, like mentioned by Dr. Abdul Muhari too, that in Indonesia too, it's another challenge too. I'm sorry that I have to mention that we have two kinds of hazard. Hazard that with high frequency but low impact, and the other types is hazard with high frequency but low impact, and the other one is low frequency but high impact. So in this kind of two hazard, we should address it into a different way. Therefore, from this point of view, we assess one research gap is how to make this kind of culture of safety become a culture of people in Indonesia, to make people realize how to access. But this has become need a comprehensive collaboration from many stakeholders in Indonesia, and to make sure that this culture of safety is not just simply a culture of people in hazardous area, of people in that live in an area with a high frequency of hazard, but also people that live in an area of like low frequency of hazard. So it's like a common culture in Indonesia, how to make it, and it's become our research gap on our discussion group. Thank you, Dr. Rahma. That's from our group.
Thank you very much, Mbak Fatia. This is wonderful presentation from the breakout room 2. Please send your reaction as well to breakout room 2. It's really impressive, the discussion, and very rich, yeah, the discussion. Next, we will move to the breakout room 3, presented by facilitator Mbak Nawang.
Thank you, Bu Rahma, for the opportunity. So we had a discussion, a fruitful discussion about challenge, potential collaboration, and the research gap. And we found that the first challenge is the communication gap between geology study and the affected community itself, or it also applies to tourist. Geological study in the context of hazard is to save the people, but geology in Indonesia is just on the upstream. So the opportunities lie on how to connect geology study to the community. And Julia said that Indonesia can work with BGS in terms of volcano mapping with involve with the communities. And then another option is to enhance outreach and education method, maybe using films, stories, poems, and games. And then the second challenges is in volcanoes monitoring and assessment in terms of the number of volcanoes, the types, and then Indonesia is also experiencing the lack of knowledge, people, and the data itself. So Alessandro said that maybe the first step is we can use the open source data, satellite data, and event training courses. And maybe that's all from me. Back to you, Bu Rahma.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mbak Nawang. Also, thank you very much to Group 3. We can give our reaction to Group 3. So this is the end of the first session. Allow me to wrap up a little bit of the volcano session. We first had the presentation from, can you see my slides? We first had a presentation from Dr. Devi on the advancement of volcano monitoring system in Indonesia since the last five century, and Dr. Sapanta presented about understanding and communicating volcanic hazard. I take the wording from Pak Diki in our Group 3, starting with the discussion with how to save more lives, and I take from Dr. Samantha that we actually need to connect a volcano environment with the people, and to understand the people, Rdi-Bgs has already conducted a massive effort on monitoring system, but not only the monitoring, also the regulation, human and cooperation. Maybe we might feel that, for example, when during the Semeru eruption, still people are asking why it seems like it's not working, but eventually PVMBG is doing continuous learning and improvement. So we can see how it improves event by event, and currently PVMBG is able to monitor 200 volcanoes with 300 session networks. And with this, we have another challenges on how the flood of the data that was mentioned to manage with big data, AI, and real-time dissemination. PVMBG has already developed Magma, which is accessible to the government and also to the people. And international cooperation is very important to leveraging joint monitoring, capacity building, technology transfer, and co-development, and also working on science for decision making and policy. More works are needed. Maybe we can go to our group discussion as well. And here there is also a key to fill in the gaps on the citizen science that can fill in the gap with participatory approach that can also build the collective intelligence. It is important to bring volcano and its dynamic closer to the people as not an exclusive places, as Pak Devi mentioned in his last slides. And in fact, tourism area provide also a wider potential to volcano mitigation. During the discussion, there has been a massive discussion on opportunities, challenges, and research gaps. Mainly, the opportunities range from being updated with new instruments and technology, continuous improvement of the online platform that already existed, such as Magma, engaging more the local community as a subject, connecting geology with the people, integrating new methods, having a more detailed mapping, extending training courses, and also understanding more on tourist vulnerability. We have challenges on finding different way of risk communication, how to determine the dormant but active volcanoes that can also happen. We can use more of remote sensing data satellites, and we also have challenges on flood information. But on the other hand, the information availability is also in some areas is limited, especially where the infrastructure of communication is limited in remote area, which cause the inaccessibility of people to the information. The research gaps that were identified range from real-time monitoring, submarine volcanoes, multi-hazardous approach for volcanic hazard assessment, how to develop culture of safety, community-based volcano disaster mitigation, on more engaging the community to the research, on data mining, data acquisition, and so on, detailed geological mapping and translation, and alternative communication tools and methods, including art, stories, poems, films, and other means. So that is the wrap up for volcanology session, which is very rich, and thank you very much for all your active participation. We still have one more session. Apology that we will not have a break, a formal break, because of the time. We are already beyond the time. But if you need to take your praying, or if you need to go to the toilet, please do in between the session. So we will go to the next tsunami session, starting from the presentation from Dr. Abdul Mohari, who is the head of data and information of National Agency for Disaster Management. He is also a tsunami expert. I have also learned a lot with Dr. Abdul Mohari since our PhD. He has been working, he has graduated from ITB and then PhD from Tohoku University, where he also experienced the 2011 Japan earthquake and tsunami. He was a visiting scientist in German Aerospace Center and working in IRIDES Tohoku University. Then he worked in the Ministry of Fishery, Marine Affairs and Fishery in the Republic of Indonesia for quite a long time before moving to BNPB in 2019. He has also been visited professors in several global universities and published many research publications. He is currently the chairman of Sentinel Asia in the Tsunami Working Group. To Dr. Abdul Mohari, the time is yours to present the tsunami hazard management and mitigation in Indonesia.
Thank you, Bu Rahma. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for this online from the Europe. Okay, I will talk about the geological hazard and the related disaster mitigation in Indonesia, in particularly on tsunami aspect. So I will use this opportunity to discuss more to the tectonic in the tsunami, because I guess Professor Dev Tapin will discuss more about the volcanic in the tsunami later on. So I will start from the paper that we published also together with Bu Rahma in 2020 about the megathrust in south of Java, where we discuss about the possible energy to store in the south coast of Java, in the western part and the eastern part, and we try to calculate the sleep rate, and we accumulate the sleep rate until the 400 years based on the recent papers on the sediment, tsunami sediment science. And this is what we have. In the western part, we have at least magnitude 8.7, and in the western part, we have at least magnitude 8.8. And if this these two earthquake segment ruptures simultaneously, then we will have more or less magnitude 9.1, and this is the resulting tsunamis affected in the all over south coast of Java, and also Sunda Strait and the south part, west and south part of Sumatra. This is the calculated tsunami height along the coast, where we have the average tsunami height at the coastline about 5 to 6 meters. If we have 5 to 6 meters at the coast, then we will expect at least 2 or 3 times higher when it inundated inland. So we can expect that the maximum run-up height around 18 or maybe more than 20 meters. So this is not the small tsunami. This is big tsunami. And also our result is in this paper consistent with the one from the probabilistic perspective published by Horspool in 2013, where we can see here the average tsunami height along the coast when we have the 500-year written period is about 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 meters. But also, aside of the 500 years written period, we also have slightly lower written period with the also lower possible tsunami height along the coast. Here we have 100 years written period, where the average tsunami height along the coast around 2 to 3 meters or 3 to 5 meters. So this calculation probably related to with 2 events we have in 1994 at East Java Banyuwangi earthquake. As we see here, the surface tsunami height lower than 5 meters. Also in 2006 West Java tsunami, here we have we see the publication from Fritz et al. Even though we have one higher tsunami than 20 meters, but the average height, the surface height along the coast is less than 5 meters. So this is related with more as a 100 years written period. But don't forget, we also have the probability for the more than 2,000 years tsunami written period, where of course the resulting tsunami much more higher. Here we see if we discuss about more than 2,000 years tsunami written period, then we will have the tsunami distribution along the coast more than 20 meters. So what are these result affect on designing proper mitigation? We have problems here. First, when we design the tsunami mitigation, particularly when we discuss what kind of structures we should have along the coast in reducing tsunami height, we will face two index in determining the hazard hazard parameters. First, the intensity, which indexing by tsunami run-up or inundation height. Then the return period. Why do we should discussing about return period? Because when we discuss tsunami mitigation, then we expect that things that we will develop will function optimally at the time tsunami happen. And as we know that the tsunami return period range from the probably say 30 years to more than 2000 years. So why we should consider the return period? We are not going to discuss things that will happen in the next 2000 years, of course. Probably things are completely different at all. So what we learned from Japan after 2011 tsunami, then we start to discuss what are the type of tsunami that we can deal with, that we can build the structure that can reduce the tsunami at the time the tsunami happened, not at the time when we think now, but we don't know when to happen, and we are not preparing the appropriate structures to reduce the tsunami that we don't know when to happen. So after this 2011, the Japanese divided the potential impacted area into two types, tsunami level 1 and tsunami level 2. Tsunami level 1 is the return period of tsunami that will occur 50 to 200 years, which is a more higher frequency but low impact tsunami. And tsunami level 2, the return period more than 200 years, which is the lower frequency tsunami but higher impact. But the tsunami level 2, there is nothing that we can do in terms of structural mitigation. So now we discuss about tsunami level 1, but how to design how to delineating the area for tsunami level 1 and tsunami level 2 before the tsunami happened. Because if we discuss about post-event, then as what we have in 2011 tsunami example, then we can easily divide it the historical inundation area in the more frequent tsunami, and then the maximum tsunami recorded historical on that area, particularly the maximum inundation line of 2011 tsunami. But if we discuss about the pre-event area, then we should delineating the area for tsunami level 1 and tsunami level 2 in some sort of statistical approach that we can see. In example here, I'll show you the quasi-probabilistic tsunami inundation model we use in Kochi. We have several scenarios, and the inundation line we overlay one to another, and then we see which area that affected by the whole scenario, or 20% of the scenario, or 80% of the scenario. So what you have, what you see in the figure C is the area, delineating area of tsunami level 1 and tsunami level 2. The red one is the tsunami level 1, which is the area that should be affected by the any case of the tsunami from the scenario that we have, and the yellow area is the only area that only affected by less than 20% of the total scenario we have. So here we delineating the area that we should consider what type of mitigation we have. So in this red area, this is the most populated area that we should discuss how to reduce the tsunami impact. So in discussing the mitigation structures in developed or mid-developed countries like Indonesia, we also facing two types of the approach. First, the green approach, and the second, the gray approach. Of course, gray approach is physically structural equipment like seawall and sea dike and etc. And particularly in a costly benefit for the mid-developed country or mid-developing countries, and also environmentally not suitable in terms of landscape of the coastal area. And in Indonesia, BMPB, we more use to use the green approach, because what we will tackle, what we will solve is like more than 50 years or 20 years recent period of the disaster. That then we should discuss what would be the structures that can sustain more than 200 or more than even 500 years. If we discuss about the physical structures like seawall, then it has probably just 50 years optimal age for optimal function to reduce tsunami impact. More than 50 years, it will start to deteriorate it and lowering the capability to reduce tsunami impact. But indifferent, particularly when we discuss coastal forest, an example, like what we have in Sendai before the 2011 tsunami. This is the coastal forest at the seaside of Sendai Airport, which was built in 1611 after the Keicho tsunami. And is that damaged? Yeah, yes, it's damaged, but it reduced significantly the impact of tsunami. And then we learn about the damage of the coastal forest, and we comes up with the solution that we should develop the coastal forest in like elevated land to allow the root growth more deeper to increase the capability of the tree to resist for the hydrodynamic impact. So we assess, we do research in assessing the capability of the elevated land with the vegetation, and this is what we comes up for Indonesia. So we will have the small trees at the front with the dense branch, and we will have the bigger tree in the back as the fence. So with that, I conclude my talk first. Understanding the hazard is necessary, but not only the worst case matter. Return period characteristic is important in designing proper mitigation structures. The second, sustainable approach by utilizing vegetation should be mainstream, but we need to understand the limitation of the vegetation for proper education and preparedness. It doesn't mean if we have coastal forest, then we can reduce all of the type or all type of the tsunami. And the last thing, integrated studies, including coastal biology, coastal dynamics, civil engineering, and socio-anthropological study for better mitigation. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Rahma. I return it to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Mohari. It's very impressive on your examples on how to really conducting research base for mitigation and understanding, doing research, and having that as a basis for mitigation and also for policy making. So thank you again, Dr. Abdul Mohari. Please, if you have any question, you can put in the Padlet the question to Dr. Abdul Mohari, and we will convey after the presentation from Prof. David Tepin. So Prof. Dr. David Tepin is our last presenter. He is the principal researcher at the British Geological Survey, leading the tsunami hazard research, as well as being honorary professors in the Earth Sciences Department at University of College London. To Dr. Prof. Tapin will present about the assessment on potential hazard of tsunami. To Prof. Tapin, you have 10 minutes to present, and you may have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you. Let me just share my screen with you. And somewhere here, I've got to talk. Okay. Here we go. So many thanks for organising this meeting. It's been fascinating and interesting. Let me just swap my screen. Okay. And I'm obviously going to talk about tsunami hazards from the volcanoes. And it's been a fantastic discussion we're having. And of course, with Indonesia, there's a broader context, just not volcanoes, it's on a convergent margin. And to me, Indonesia is the geohazard capital of the world. And its tsunamis are not just generated by volcanoes, but over the past 20, 30 years, you've had some incredibly devastating events. And from Sumatra, 2004, 2006 off of Java, and up in Sulawesi, 2018, you had the Palu event, and these are earthquakes and also earthquake-triggered submarine landslides. But of course, you've had some massive volcanic eruptions, and of course, the major one is 1883, which has already been mentioned. And something I want to talk a little bit more is on Anak Krakatau in 2018. And when we look at a list of volcanoes, I've seen you've got about 30 volcanoes and eruptions, but I've got 24. You're way up to date with me. And the record that I have goes back to 416 and comes up to 200,018 with Krakatoa. And these have been volcanic tsunamis. There is information on some, but as you can see, not a great deal. There's been a number of casualties, and we're looking at something like 50 or 60,000 people who have died in these events. And we've already seen the different mechanisms. We discussed yesterday the different mechanisms of tsunamis and the particular complex array of mechanisms from volcanoes. And when we look at the volcano tsunamis, you can see their pyroclastic flows, sorry about that, let's go back. Underwater explosions and volcanic landslides. So we have this complex array of mechanisms which can generate tsunamis. You have 127 volcanoes. I've got question mark 150. And there have been major events of eruption, Tambora in 1815, Tambora is down here. But the big ones, I've said, are 1883 in Krakatoa, and Anak Krakatau in 2018. And I've got a little map here, and you can see the broad spread of volcanic eruptions from the Sunda Strait between Sumatra and Java. And you can see Krakatau has been very, very active over the past several hundred years. And again, there's a focus up here in the northeastern part of the country. And over here along the other islands in the Indonesian archipelago, you can see there have been events here over in the east. But of course, it's Krakatoa, which always comes up when we discuss volcanic tsunamis. 1883, the pyramidal peak was destroyed in the eruption. There was a major tsunami generated. It caused eventually the birth of Krakatoa. And one of the important aspects was that the event led to the first post-event survey of an eruption and also a tsunami. This was by Rdi-Bgs in 1885. He mapped the inundation, and locally their tsunami was critical, with 30-odd meter run-ups on the coast of Java, and over in the north of Sumatra, elevation was something like about 24. There were 19 tsunamis, 36,000 fatalities, but not only confined to Indonesia, but also there was a global impact. And all around the globe, there were these red sunsets, and it was made famous in Europe by painting by a Norwegian artist. You can see the red skies here. And more recently, in 2003, Steve Carey and Kelly Stroker in the University of Rhode Island actually mapped the volcanic deposits. And you can see here, there to the north, they're over about 60 meters in thickness. So it was an absolutely amazingly catastrophic and important event because it really flagged the hazard from volcanic eruptions. Most recently, there's been a reconsideration of the mechanisms and whether they are from pyroclastic flows or late stage associated with late stage collapse, and also the shock waves from phreatomagmatic explosions. So I've been leading in association with colleagues in America, mapping offshore of the islands and acquiring new seismic data, and also compiling new simulations. The program was meant to run between 2018 and 21, but because of delays in COVID, it's been delayed. We've acquired some data, but hopefully later this year, we're going to acquire the remaining data. Ana Krakatoa in 2018, another major event. The history of that is really quite interesting. The volcano built within the caldera of the 1883 eruptions in July. It started erupting again, and then in December there was a vigorous phase of eruption, and the volcano collapsed into this major graben which had been formed in 1883. There's some fantastic Sentinel satellite data. We've discussed the use of satellites in interpretation. One of the main problems here was there was a huge ash cloud, but the radar data allowed us to view the island before and afterwards. And from this, we have developed a model. This is the island before, about 300 meters high. Subsequently, as it collapsed into this large graben, it was severely reduced in height. And of course, the eruption being so close to local land areas led to a number of fatalities. About 400 people died and many people injured, and a large number of people displaced in the succeeding tsunami. There were field studies carried out, and from this information, which is really, really important in understanding the tsunami and its mechanism, we're aware, here we are, this is Krakatoa, this is Sumatra, this is Java, that there was a maximum tsunami of about 6.6 meters. And like I said, over 400 people died in the event. And again, we were fortunate enough in having the scientific program
it seems like we lost connection.
Yeah, I thought it's only me, yeah, but I guess, yeah.
From which,
okay, back again.
From which we mapped the actual block field, which resulted from this collapse. Here you can see Ana Krakatoa afterwards severely reduced in elevation. And from this, we can see the collapsed blocks from the eruption. You can see here the shape of them. They're actually large blocks of the flank of the volcano. The cause of this, we worked out that over the course of 90 years, Ana Krakatoa had grown up, I mean, really very, very rapidly to this elevation of 300 meters. During this eruption, it had moved to the southwest on the edge of this very, very large graben. And during the event, the southwestern flank collapsed into this. And the collapse was in part based because there was a very weak base of older material which had been deposited when the volcano was submarine. And again, it's the very, very rapid growth of this event. I'm going to go back. Okay. So I hope you're still with me. Have I lost you? No.
Yes, we are
Okay.
with you, David.
Yes, we are with you.
Yes,
That's
still.
okay, because my internet is not very good. So the perspective of volcanoes, looking at the mitigation, you have a lot of them. We've discussed this, and a lot of them are very, very close to the ocean. We've discussed about how you can mitigate against these. They're very, very different to earthquakes. They are locally generated. There can be a very short warning time, but the build-up can be long, and perhaps this indicates how we can improve our monitoring. One of the aspects that I'm very keen on is education and local community action to help in the mitigation. I've got a final slide here, and the work that I've been doing, of course, has been association with many, many Indonesian colleagues, and I wanted to put this slide up because I think it's very important. We've got Udrek here, Perna, my colleagues who carried out the survey. But one of the things that comes to me is, as we've discussed here, is education. And I've got a few pictures here of myself with the Indonesian children. And this one down here is one of my favorites. I'm on Sabisi and I'm mapping the deposits. And these children are really very, very excited about what's happening. So one of my messages here is to educate the children in the schools. And we discussed that earlier. So thank you very much for organizing this project. It's been fascinating, and I hope in the future that certainly I will be able to, together with my BGS colleague, develop the work and expand the work that we've been doing on hazards in Indonesia. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Prof. David Pepin. This is very impressive. Really learned a lot on your consistency to research Krakatau, and I'm amazed that you are still kept going here to Indonesia for the field survey. I believe it's quite tough because we also need to take the ship and etc. Also the challenges for volcano and maintaining our memories through education. I will go to the Q&A session, and since I think Dr. Abdul Muhari was just being called by the head of NDMA, so maybe we will start questions to Prof. David Tapin. If there is any question, you can raise your hand. Maybe I would also like to ask you, Prof. David. So it's you have listed 25 events on volcano induced tsunami in Indonesia, and most of them are also located in eastern Indonesia. I know you have been presenting very deeply on the 1883 Krakatau as well as the 2018 Krakatau, but for your last message on the mitigation for volcano tsunamis, how do you see the different characteristic between Krakatau and the different characteristic and maybe the similar characteristic that we need to take into account for the case of eastern Indonesia? I think all from the 25 lists, mostly are from eastern Indonesia, and then we have the Krakatau. So maybe learning from Krakatau, what should we bring for the mitigation in understanding in eastern Indonesia, but what is also different in the case of eastern Indonesia? Yeah, this list. So almost all are eastern Indonesia. You have mentioned a very deep for Sunda Strait. So what we need to take care of, to be careful with for the eastern Indonesia case, based on your observation, long observation. Please, Prof. Tapin.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And but when I put this list together and I looked at the locations, that's one of the things that came to my mind. And we know a lot about the about Krakatoa and the Krakatoa in the Sunda Strait, but as far as I can make out, it's because when you look at the older events, they are sort of 100 years old, and it will be really interesting to revisit those. I didn't have a chance to look in any detail, But one of the aspects there, and if you're looking at them, some of them, they're pyroclastic flows, collapse of the lava dome. And it struck me that the absence of a recent event, is this something that should be a focus of study? Because there are a number of events over here. And as I said, they're 100 years old. And I don't know if volcanologists in Indonesia have been looking at them. But to me, it immediately came to mind that this is something that I'm sure, I'm looking at Susilo Hardy there, he's nodding his head, I hope, but I think that this would be, to me, for volcanic tsunamis, that this would certainly be a priority to put some research programs together to investigate these events and to find out a little bit more about them. So I can't answer your question except to say, in the context of the last discussion we had, this would be a priority for me. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Tapin. And yeah, indeed, this is also something that we also need to take further action on research gaps. And I think this will also be a good start for the discussion during our FGD later on. There is one more question. What are the aspects that we must cover when it comes to educating children about tsunami, maybe also including volcano tsunami?
Yeah, what aspects? Well, I think, I mean, one of the reasons I always go for children, because I think you can educate adults, but the older we get, the more set we are in our ways, you know, we have our ideas. And it was when in the field work, the children were always really interested in what I was doing. And I think it's just general knowledge of events in Indonesia. I mean, there are so many of them, and just some simple courses as part of your geoscience, environmental courses, and again, it's often really good idea to bring the sort of human interest into it. You know, how events happen, reporting by individuals, but I think just general science education is important, because, you know, as I keep on stating, in Indonesia, you know, geohazards are really, really important, and volcanic eruptions are, earthquakes, and obviously my own particular specialization, tsunamis. So when I was in the field, obviously the children didn't speak English, but I was working with people like Pernis, Susilo Hardy, Udra. We just discussed with the children, and they were always really fascinated. And you can see when I was doing the field work here, this was on Sabisi. Where is it? There you go. It should come up next. That's a big one, that. Is it going to come? Anyway, but you can see in the bottom here, the kids were actually fascinated. They were, you know, it was really good. That's my favorite picture of all time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is wonderful, and I think we also need to translate all of your research as well as part of education for school children. I think it's also it's part that is important. I remember that I also went to Ternate, and apparently the children in Ternate are taught about the volcano in Bali or in other area, but they are not very much taught about the volcano in their own area. So I think we need an extensive material education as well for the school children based on the research that has been conducted. Thank you very much, Prof. David Tapin. And I think next we will go to our focus group discussion. It will again be divided into 3 groups to address the similar questions for tsunami. It will be for 30 minutes. We hope you had a good discussion, and we will return back here within 30 minutes. Thank you again, Prof. Tapin and Dr. Abdul Muhari. If you can stay here, we will also ask a closing statement in the later stage. So to the committee, please divide the breakout room. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the weekend. Yeah, I hope that you all have a good discussion in your breakout room, as we have in the first group. And yeah, to Dana, please present the breakout room 1 results.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rahma, for the opportunity again. I would like to present about what we conclude in the breakout room first. And the first one for the opportunities itself is the public awareness of tsunami. It has been increasing since the tsunami 24 in Aceh, and there is a lot of strengthening in the tsunami management, GIS methods, and any other more, and it still need to be further optimizing for the future. And for the challenges itself, there's a lot of challenges that we currently face. Is the first one is about the post Aceh tsunami infrastructure. It state that there were a lot of infrastructure that has been implemented in Aceh before, but however, there are a lot of barriers that currently facing by the current system, and the maintenance issues of the tsunami early warning system, infrastructure, and data mining is currently not really good, and it's need to be focused more on, especially in the area that has been affected by the tsunami. And if you see here, the other one is the coordination between stakeholders. The coordination between stakeholders is currently is currently better than before, but however, it still needs to be enhanced for the better management in tsunami hazard in Indonesia. And last but not least is about the limited data availability. That's because the tsunami need more local and detailed data, and it is need a little bit more time to do that. And for the research gap itself, the first one is obviously about the low-cost technology monitoring, information and dissemination. But however, we need to also consider about the 100% tsunami ready in coastal area by UN agenda. And it state that it need more localized approach by the location in Indonesia, because Indonesia has a lot of different characteristic, and it need very different approach for that. And also about the tsunami induced volcano, it said that more than 80% eruption in the submarine volcano is not really impactful to the land. But however, we need to more knowledge on this topic in particular, and short and very long-term preparedness is needed in terms of the tsunami preparedness, and long-term strategies such as relocation, cultural change need to be considered further, especially in the coastal area. And about the GPS network itself, it's also in line with the low-cost technology monitoring information and dissemination. I think that's all from the room, the first room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dana, for presenting our discussion from breakout room 2. Please applause for group 1. So the next is to the second group. Mbak Fatia, please.
Thank you, Dr. Rahma, for the opportunity. So on our breakout room, we have assessed a certain challenge in Indonesia, because Indonesia is a large and polygonal country. Of course, we have a very long coastline which prone to experience tsunami. And from that point, we also need to address that we have a different type of mechanism of this tsunami. The tsunami that is caused by the tectonic activity, and then also the non-tectonic tsunami. And since we already have an established system on, at least on the tectonic tsunami activity, now we have to move forward on the non-tectonic tsunami activity in Indonesia. The tsunami that caused by a volcano, it might need a better collaboration with so many stakeholders, because it's like the crossing point, intersection point of many stakeholders like CVGHM and then BNPB, but also BMKG also monitoring this kind of tsunami too. And we have to make sure that because each of volcano have a different characteristic. If you want to get further, we also have we need to prepare a more adaptive approach for each volcano and more adaptive approach of each tsunami in Indonesia. And the gaps, the research gap that we might address from our group is first for the non-tectonic tsunami, because it's not yet researched in well researched in Indonesia. Therefore, the tsunami which caused by volcano and furthermore tsunami that caused by submarine landslides need a more adaptive approach, especially on tsunami that caused by submarine landslide. It's quite unique, and we need a better technology, we need a better information, and we have to explore further what we are currently have to approach this kind of hazard. And then the second gaps is a local wisdom. Some area is already have a local wisdom related to certain hazard, and how to make this kind of local wisdom more mainstream in this era and adapted by the modern people in this era. And first thing to do is to explore further on the local wisdom, and we compile a comprehensive information of the local wisdom on each potentially hazardous area in Indonesia. So that is what we are see as our research gap from the discussion of breakout room 2. Thank you, Dr. Rahma.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fadia. And again, applause for room 2. So next we'll move to the breakout room 3. Please to Mbak Nawang, ya.
Thank you, Bu Rahma. So in the third room, we have 2 points that I can summarize. So the first one is similar with the second room about non-tectonic tsunami. So Indonesia has a good record regarding tsunami events, but from sources wise, the record is still lacking, such as volcanoes or landslide-induced tsunamis. And Sam said that to tackle the challenges, maybe the stakeholders have to observe or identify particular sources first, such as volcanoes that located in sea, and then it can be followed by tsunami monitoring, such as sea level rise. And then we have to increase basic knowledge about tsunami risks for the coastal communities as well as to tourists. We should work in risk perception. So it is such a challenge that we have to deal, because we have to deal with the large group. Maybe we can increase awareness to schools and disseminate hazard maps and models better. Maybe that's all from me. Bu Rahma, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is very wonderful, Mbak Fatia. And I think we have reached the end of our session. Before maybe I conclude the several key points from the presentation, I would like to thank you all the participants from the session to until this hour. So let me wrap up what we have discussed during the tsunami session. Dr. Abdul Mohari has presented on the tsunami hazard management and mitigation in Indonesia, and Prof. David Tepins has presented about assessment on potential hazard on tsunami, mainly on volcano and with the case of Krakatau. It's really obvious that we have different characteristics of tsunami in Indonesia, from earthquake-induced tsunami, volcanic-induced landslide, but also it is geographically different. We have a different situation from the eastern to the western and eastern Indonesia, and places that by places it can also have a different characteristic. What really amazed me to see Dr. Abdul Mohari and Prof. David Tepin is how they are dedicated to continue research to understand better the hazard, and also to understand better the effective way of mitigation, seeing that they are presented their papers, and not only one paper, but many papers. And this understanding, this research is really used for as a basis for mitigation and policy development, which is again very important to the future. Dr. Abdul Mohari has also emphasized not only to focus on the worst case scenario, but also on developing tsunami level 1 and tsunami level 2 based on the return period of 50 to 200 years, and also a return period of more than 200 years. We have a green approach and gray approach for tsunami mitigation, which can be contextualized in each places. And also we need more offshore data, and the absence of the events actually need to be focused as well, not to be forgotten, but actually to be focused, as Prof. Tapin has mentioned, and the importance of education. We have discussed about opportunities, challenges, and research gaps. The opportunities, I think I will start with the challenges. It's true that it's mainly because we have a large archipelagic country, and Indonesia is the geohazard capital of the world, with different characteristic and very local situation. We have challenges of infrastructure maintenance. We have vertical infrastructure, but not really functioning. We have challenges on data mining, coordination between stakeholders, and also limited local data that is available, and how to assess hazard intensities for the local needs. So there is opportunities raising that we have more public awareness of tsunami. We have currently the Indonesia Tsunami Early Warning System, and we have more technology that are available. And we identify the research gaps on development of low-cost technology for monitoring information and dissemination, more effective evacuation and mitigation, submarine volcano, tsunami-induced volcano, and submarine landslide, and also on local wisdom, as well as also observing particular volcanoes when it can proceed to tsunami monitoring. So integrating volcano to tsunami monitoring, and also working closer with the government to define tsunami, and to working out for contingency planning. I think that is the wrap up from my side, but we would also like to hear the closing statement from our speakers. If you are still here, we would like to invite Pak Dr. Devi Kamil Shahbana to give your closing statements. And after that, Dr. Samantha, Dr. Abdul Mohari, and Dr. David Tapin. Please, Dr. Devi.
Yeah, thank you. I think for my closing remarks regarding the volcanic hazards, volcanic hazards pose different type of hazards. So I mean, not every volcano has the same characteristic of hazards between them. And regarding the volcano tsunami, we need to first understand. Sorry. First, we need to know the history of the volcano tsunami of Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have 12 volcanoes that have generated tsunami in the past. 10 of them are monitored by us. And this year it will be 11. But the main thing is that not only the monitoring system that we need to establish, not the siren as well, because some people think that sophisticated instruments solve the problems, but the real problems is that this is a rare event, and it is difficult to maintain the preparedness of people who live around the hazardous area. So beside improving our capability in detecting tsunami, what we need to do next is that we need to increase the capacity of the local government, and as well as the community that are threatened by these hazards. And we need to do the simulation and from time to time, because in Indonesia now you are the chief of this institution, but next year it will be, you can be replaced. So the tabletop exercise may be a good model that people should should adapt to anticipate the disaster in the future. I think that's the main thing that I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Devi. Next, please to Dr. Samantha to provide your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to say it's been a real pleasure to be part of this workshop, and I've learned a lot, and it's been so great to speak to so many of you. And I suppose one of the things that's really struck me is how similar issues are across the different hazards. So obviously my background is in volcanology, but a lot of the conversations that we've been having are very similar, regardless of the hazard and related to whether that's related to data, monitoring, response, communication, and populations around a hazard. And so it's been really great to kind of learn about different approaches and different hazards, and think about how we can potentially move forward with the different hazards. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samantha. Next, Dr. Abdul Muhari, please your closing statement.
Thank you, Rahma. So from my point of view, if we discuss about the geological hazard and how to really improve the capacity of the community at risk. So the mindset we should mainstream that we're living in between the past disaster and should be prepared for the future disaster. Then the second, we should start to think from the government perspective that we are not going to solve the whole problem. So we start to solve the thing that we can do today, that we expect that thing that we can do today can be function optimally at the time disaster happens. So we should limit the thing that we can do with the thing that we want to do and the thing that we need to do. So this sort of three type of the thing that we have to do, but we should limit in terms of the thing that we can do today that we expect that will be optimally function at the time disaster happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Muhari. And next we will move to Prof. David Tapin, please, for your closing statement.
Hello again. First, thank you to the organizers, Indonesia and the UK. For me, it's been a really great learning experience. So to all the contributors, I think one of the major hazards, one of the major challenges with volcanic tsunamis or any tsunami or any geohazard is the fact that they can be high impact, but they can be infrequent. And I think that is the real challenge. I mean, in past 20 years, we've learned a huge amount about earthquake tsunamis. It started really with 2004 in Indonesia. And even going back further with Krakatau and most recently Anna Krakatau, we've learned a huge amount about volcanic tsunamis. And I've mentioned that Indonesia is the global hotspot. But the major challenge that with all countries and specifically Indonesia, it's identifying where and its resources. And I think it's the resources that you have to apply. And you know, Dr. Muhari really sums it up. I think that it is a massive challenge. I mean, I've identified the eastern volcanoes, and where you start, I don't know, because you have earthquake volcanoes, and we haven't got into submarine landslides, which are my real expertise. And I showed the map. You've got Java 2006 and most recently Palu. And Palu was a surprise because you had the earthquake, which was strike slip. It shouldn't have generated a tsunami. It did. But it triggered all those coastal landslides and the liquefaction and the earthquake. So you just had everything all in one go. So all I can say is over the years, I mean, I started 2004, started Indonesia. And I think the object of this workshop is to identify synergies between the UK and Indonesia. And I'm just, hopeful that this workshop and the meetings that you've had will help you understand your science. I mean, you've got some brilliant scientists. I mean, I gave you a list of them. And that this workshop will lead to further collaborations. I mean, that's all. I think thank you to all of you for for inviting me and spending all this time. And as I say, I've learned a lot. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Prof. David Tapin. As you have learned also a lot. And finally, I would like to invite Dr. Saud Sagala as the host from RDI to provide the final remarks. Please, Pak Saud.
Yeah, thank you, Rahma. I really enjoyed this the second day and as well as the first day, and I think all the inputs have been really important. And in the context of research areas, I think there are lists that our team from RDI will collect all together and will share to colleagues in BGS and also others here, that we feel it will be important to explore what next steps. So I think my questions also to some of the speakers also relating to that those areas as well. And with this, I would like to thank everyone with all contributions. With Iqbal, I should first say to your name because we organized this together and we started with this, I would say, wild ideas, and then we had this 2-day workshop. But we wanted to follow up after this. This is not going to be, just a stop. We will follow up with further workshop, meaning that we realized that our time to discuss even one single hazard would be very limited within this time that we have. So we will follow that up, but this is a kick-off where everybody get to know each other, get to know the topics, but RDI, BGS, and some other here from the Geological Agency, the BNPB, PVMBG, and BRIN also, and some other, I would say, institution that I cannot mention now, would be happy to explore together. And I hope you will not get bored with our too many emails to remind you, but this is more into building the geological hazard research through this collaboration. I think that's from me, Rahma. Thank you very much to you, to everyone here. And if I can clap, I will clap to say applause to everyone for all the very important contributions. And we look forward, we'll update you with the next workshop, and at least the very least is with the summary of the workshop we had for the last 2 days. Thank you. Over to you, Rahma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saud Sagala. Indeed, I also learned a lot today. I enjoy very much the presentation by all of you and also the discussion during the breakout room and hearing all the feedback, all the results from the breakout group discussion. We have identified several challenges, research gaps, opportunities, which are a lot. But quoting what Dr. Abdul Muhari has said, we need to start from what we can do. And then Dr. Devi has also mentioned that we need to do it continuously, starting from all we can start to do, to understand better from the hazard and using it for better mitigation and preparedness, and also on communicating and the challenges behind to bring closer the hazard, to bring closer volcano and the ocean to the people without fearing, but to understand better and living better with the nature itself. I'm Rahma Hanifa from the National Research and Innovation Agency. We currently we will currently establishing our research center for geological disaster, and it also focus on tsunami, earthquake, landslide, and volcano. Under the research organization of Earth Sciences and Maritime. So we will be happy to be collaborating with you on this geological disaster. And we also put in our roadmap on how to understand better the systemic risk and cascading risk, risk communication and resilience, which is also a new area that we need to explore. I think yesterday Dr. Iqbal has also mentioned several ways to address this cascading and systemic risk. And today we also hear about how to bring better communication and also resilience. So lastly, I would like to remind you to again fill in the attendance form in the chat room that is provided both in the Zoom chat and also in the YouTube chat. And with this, I would like to say thank you to all of the speakers and for the excellent. Yeah, please, Iqbal. And I would like thank you very much to the audience that have attended today's webinar, and we will see you to the next one. But I think before closing,
Iqbal want to say something.
Yeah, I will provide the floor to Dr. Iqbal, please.
And just really quickly, because this workshop wouldn't have been possible without the support from Fatia, Dana, and Wang. And I think your work ethic and efficiency is absolutely admirable. So thank you so very much for all the work you've been putting over the last 6 months. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. We really also thank you to Fatia and her team, which is working very hard and very detailed to provide all the necessary details and materials, and also to make sure all the rundown. They have been chatting me the whole time to make sure the timing and the flow and everything. So thank you again very much to everyone. If there is, does anyone want to say any other closing statement? Maybe Prof. Gavin or Julia or the others.
I can just very quickly say it would be great to hear about more collaboration, and that's especially going forward, especially with social sciences and the geological sciences. That's it. Thanks for inviting me to be part of it.
Thank you, Prof. Gavin. And yes, this is very interdisciplinary and collaborative, which is a very good teamwork that we are starting here. Any others before we close? Please do. If no, I would like to say again one more time, thank you to everyone here from Indonesia, from UK. We hope that we can have this kickoff meeting, this kickoff workshop can give birth to very good collaboration in the next future in the continuous basis in the long term. Thank you very much again, and I close the session.
Thank you, Rahma. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Iqbal. Gavin,
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Devi, everyone, Julia. Bye.